Hey everybody, welcome back to Conversations in Pop Culture, and we are back in the saddle once again for another season. And this episode is sponsored by my good friend Paul Gomez, who has an exciting new book out with masterful art by Sam Espinina, Gargoyles vs. Demons in an epic battle. Every story has a beginning, and this one starts before all of that. It is prequel to Aurora, now on Kickstarter. Paul's almost funded, and Paul is just an amazing writer. Very, very, very talented individual. And what I like about Paul, and I'm a backer of this book openly, is that he gets you your books, and he gets you your books pretty quickly. So if you're one of those people that is concerned about getting your Kickstarter books, with Paul, you will get your books. But enough about that, because I have with me comic creator who is doing me a solid tonight, Timothy B. Fling. So welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, man. Andrew, I appreciate you inviting me over. And yeah, I love Paul, by the way. I'm friends with him, and I think he's got a terrific book there. I haven't seen the new one is The Prelude to Aurora, right?
Yeah. He's coming on tomorrow. We're going to talk about it. So,
nice.
I don't want him to use your time. He
Cool.
tends to do that. No, Paul's great. Obviously, I'm friends with Paul, and Paul's just a very nice individual.
Yeah, he's easy to be friends with. I mean, you can talk to him about anything, you know.
Yeah. He's great, and he's got a great show over on the Madness Network and a bunch of other places. Really cool thing. But we're not talking about Paul today. This is about your book, Call of the Cryptid, issue 1. It's out there. You're fully funded on Kickstarter.
Correct.
It's exciting, and you have like 36 days.
Yeah, I went through, first of all, I should mention, I've done a couple of Kickstarters. I'm not really like an expert like you see some people are, but this is number 6 for me. So I wanted to try a couple of things that were a little different. And one of them was that, if you set your goal very low, there supposedly is a help from the algorithm for hitting it faster. So sometimes you could potentially do a little bit better in the placing by having a low goal and hitting it early. And, we've mentioned this the last couple of times, and I said, let's try it, because in our case, what you are pledging here, this is actually a completed book. Like, we don't actually put the books up there until they're sort of what we call in the can. So what I mean by that is there's still some lettering to be done, but it's a completed book. We're not trying to raise the funds for the completion. So for me, there's a little bit of a negative, I guess you might say, to, like, if I'm waiting, like, am I going to hit it or not? Like, that part doesn't help me. So what we decided to do is set the goal low, and then the real stretch goals, they're going to be right around that $2,000 to $2,800 number. Because in my guesstimation, I'm guessing it'll do $3,000, $3,500. With, if it really swings at the last minute, probably $5,000. That's my guesstimate. This is an inexact science, because of course this is a new title for me too. I do pretty well with my other series, Water Wars 2288. We just had our fulfillment for volume 4 of that one. And that's kind of what I'm known for, right? Like, I got more customers there and that kind of thing. But this is an all new title, new characters, new scenarios. The team members that created this book, if you liked our other material, you will like this one. It's the same teammates. So it's the same gang, but it is all new characters. It's not attached to any of the other books. New story.
So let's actually talk about that before we even get into this, because it's really interesting, is, the idea of setting your goal low, obviously getting funded, and then hoping that, the algorithm sort of says, cool, this is something we want to promote. And, I guess it's fuel into, the engine that moves the car faster. And then secondly, also, there is a sense, and I guess it's anecdotal, but I also think a lot of people might agree with it, is that once something is funded, it's easier for other people to jump in on the bandwagon.
Right. There is a little bit of that, right? And, first of all, let's talk about the different ways, because everybody has a different viewpoint. And if the viewers want to chime in, I know there's all different strategies. But like, one of the things is that for like a case like mine, I'm always guesstimating is around $2,200, right? But for me to put it out there for $2,200 and it only gets to $1,700, I'm going to feel the pain, because I just got nothing from a month worth of running a campaign. The other category was people said, hey, you can do it for 7 days less and it'll speed up the business. Well, I did my last one. This is volume 4. I did that one for 21 days. And man, I feel that I lost 25% of the business by doing that. So this time I didn't do that. I did the 30 days, and I even extended it so it would roll over free comic book day, because I'm going to be doing like some library appearances and stuff like that. And I'll be able to pitch my Cryptid book there.
No, I just think it's interesting. Obviously, I ran a Kickstarter for this show and brand new, and I did fund, oddly enough, and it was good. It was a good experience, but there's a million things I would do. And eventually I'm going to be producing a comic book, but I'm at least a year out. So it's not really on the forefront, but it is interesting because I know people who do a variety of different strategies, where I know people who do $500 and they're going to be doing $20,000 and they just want to fund immediately. And then I know people say, look, I can't afford to lose $6,500. So I'm going to set the goal at 6,500 and hope that I make it, because that's their risk tolerance. But I find it so interesting. And again, I don't think there's a right or wrong way. And I'm not an expert in that area by any stretch of the imagination. I don't want to start throwing ideas out to people. And
right. I can tell you, Andrew, after this, I can tell you I've tried it both ways now. And that's why, because again, not to disparage anybody, there's so many different ways. And I thought, well, I want to try it myself, and then I'll be able to say for certain whether or not it did it. I mean, I can tell you in my case for certain that I don't potentially stand to lose anything. Like, I pay all my guys up front. In my case, it's more I reimburse myself out of the Kickstarter, and really not even reimburse myself. What I'm doing is that money goes toward the printing of the current run, which, I'm figuring around $2,500. And I'd like to come out of it with, another grand, $1,500 for the next production of the next issue, to start number 2.
So it becomes seed money, essentially.
Yeah, that's what I've done with the Water Wars books. And that was what we did 5 in a row. And each time it was just another little nudge, enough to make one more, to kind of keep you going. Because for me, my costs are, other than the art, which I try to get the best art in the world, my costs are kind of low. I'm really a one-man show kind of, Now, of course, I have many great teammates that help me. But I mean, at the end of the day, for the publishing and fulfillment and all the making videos, and you know the drill. There's so many, JD Rosario calls it spinning plates. There's so many spinning plates now,
Yes. I'm in my own business, and I buy and sell a lot of comics on eBay, and I am the whole thing. I am the driver. I am the packer. I am the chief investment officer, and I love every aspect of it. I actually don't like waiting in line in the post office, but beyond that, that's the only part of the job I don't like. But this is not about me. I do want to talk about this book, though, and get into it, because obviously it's a cool book, Call of the Cryptid, issue 1. And what is the basic premise? Because I want to hear you describe it better than me describe it.
Sure. The basic premise is, at its core, it is a young girl. After an alien encounter, she gains the ability to communicate with cryptids. And essentially what it is, it's set up in the setting is 1980s upstate New York. She's a slightly atypical teenager and gets into an argument with her mother, and runs out into the night. And during the course of that night, she's abducted by an extraterrestrial being. And when she comes back to when she reports back to the present time, she's carrying something which is potentially the key to an alien conspiracy. And what it does, each issue will reveal, there's always it's going to be full of creatures and cryptids, and we're going to run through all of them. The first one has the aliens, the Men in Black, and Bigfoot.
Yeah, let's dive into this a little bit, because there's a lot of moving parts. I like it.
Right.
It's fun. I know that I think it's only 4 issues as it sits right now, which is also nice too, meaning that it's not a huge investment where we're not looking at a 50+ issue series where I'm going to be in this thing for the next 10 years. It's nice to that degree, but there's a lot of moving parts. And obviously, I think her name is Candace, I want to say.
Cadence. Yep.
Cadence. And obviously, she is not your atypical teenager as you described. She's got some issues. There's been a tragedy in her life, and obviously it affects her schooling and a variety of other stuff. And I'm sure we're going to learn a little bit more about that in his book. But what is this like? Because her escape is music, and it's heavy metal in a lot of ways. And sort of.
Yes.
And so what is this like? Because it's kind of fun and it's kind of cool. It's got, a
Yeah,
little bit of Stranger Things vibe and X-Files vibe to it. And
very, very much, man. You totally got it. If you like things like X-Files and Stranger Things, that's really what this one is set up like. And it does have, again, the backdrop of music, which is it's a little bit of a heavy metal backdrop. And in this case, the idea is that her father has recently passed, and it's made her a sensitive toward potentially being exposed to this alien intelligence. And in fact, that is what happens. And the idea is that nobody really believes her that there's these various kinds of problems, and there are problems like the timeline is resetting. There's this risk of an actual alien invasion, and of course she has no way to tell anybody, and at the same time she's being contacted by these other worldly creatures, and she doesn't know why they are contacting her.
And so what is this like? Because obviously she's growing as a young woman in this entire thing, and she's dealing with the tragedy of losing her father, and now she's at the center of an intergalactic, I guess, political crisis.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly it.
See, because this is why it's funny. It seems so wholesome, and this is what I really like about the book is that it seems so wholesome. It seems just like a fun adventure, intergalactic issue. It doesn't seem like overreaching. It doesn't seem overly dark. And
it is a little bit, I like to mention, it is all ages friendly in this case. Now, it's not a kid's book. And here's what I mean by that. There's no sex or language issues, anything like that. But I mean, there are scary depictions of monsters, right? And otherworldly beings. And some of the illustrations are pretty scary. But it is roughly the level in tone of something like Harry Potter or The Hunger Games. It's something more like that.
And that's what's nice about it is that, like, I feel in comics, and this is just my take, is that everybody's trying to tell a dark horror story and trying to have almost comics for adults versus having, a 12-year-old could read it and have a good time with it.
Have a fun with it. Right. And, I'm glad you mentioned that, Andrew, because I think lately there's been a sort of like a growing spring of people, and men and women both, saying things like, hey, let's make comics fun again, where it's just like a fun adventure you can jump right into, and it's not too dark and gritty, because we've already done all that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's one of my biggest pet peeves is that I want to read comics and I want to escape, where my life is complicated. Everybody's life is hard. Everybody, for the most part, I have a 9-to-5 job and I like my job, but there's frustrating days at my job. And I think everybody has a frustrating day where you get home from your job and you want to turn it off. And I don't want to read about darkness all the time. Like, it's fun every once in a while, but I don't want to read about it. And like that to me, and this is why I like manga in a lot of ways, is manga is fun. It's brightly colored. Anime is brightly colored. And I think this is kind of cool that you're writing a wholesome book and that we can relate to this character, because everybody, I hate to say it, has lost somebody or will lose somebody at some point. It's just the nature of us as humans. And everybody has overcome struggles. Everybody has had an issue of not communicating something efficiently. And she's dealing with all of this. And obviously she's dealing with it at a much higher level. And also everybody's had a position where somebody doesn't believe them on something. And that's what's cool about it, is that I think every person who reads this book can find something in this book to relate to. What that exactly is, I'm not sure, but like, it's so nice just to have the exact opposite of almost every interview that I do in this. And you laugh, but it's like, it's just pleasant.
Well, thanks. I have high hopes for the book, and I'm grateful, man, to be on your show and to be able to be talking about it. It is a little bit different than what I was doing before. Like, I'm kind of known for being a sci-fi guy at this point. There's 6 issues of the other series, but those are a little bit darker, right? And they are a little bit more apocalyptic, and they are a little bit what I would call, sometimes in the comics business, they call that 15 plus. The other books are a little bit more like a 15 plus book. But this one, depending on the age of your child, it's not anything that, it's like a visual adventure, and it's put together in a way that I think you would love. It's real easy to follow and lots of cool panels. And, if you love these sort of classic monsters like Bigfoot, the Mothman, the Loch Ness Monster, they're all going to be featured in an issue. And each time it's sort of it's sort of like a modern reimagining, right? Like, for example, like we have Bigfoot, right? But he's the thinking ape. He's not like, he has lines and he's super intelligent and he wears these goggles for when he's traveling between the dimensions. He's really sci-fied out, right? And all the cryptids are in it, but each time they're like just a hair off center, I guess you'd say.
Yeah, what is that like? Because obviously these cryptids, people know them and they're very familiar, but also making them different because that's an
Yeah.
art of itself too, because you want familiarity, but you also want something original, new, and a new interpretation
Right.
where, it's cool to see the alien, but it's also fun to see it in, a fun way or see Bigfoot, doing something that, Bigfoot sometimes gets kind of a stupid vibe to it and a stupid motif. And it's kind
Right.
of fun to see Bigfoot being intelligent.
Yeah, and he's really, it turns out that he's the brains behind the whole operation. And the idea is that and like I say, some of the stuff you don't necessarily want to spoil too much, but you got to let some stuff out so folks can get interested in it. The idea, the crux of the biscuit, as it were, is that the cryptids end up actually being on our side in this, intergalactic alien conspiracy, because they all have a stake in preventing what's about to happen, which is this the alien invasion is based on this supreme mathematical intelligence, which is, it's a little bit of a statement on AI, because the elder god that they're trying to keep from conquering the universe, at the end when he comes through, he is in fact mechanical. It's based on artificial intelligence.
Yeah, and what is that like? Because obviously there's also this misunderstanding that's going on with certain people wanting to, I guess, demonize these cryptids and all that stuff, and then also them communicating, and even Cadence convincing, and even her having to navigate, and also her having a purpose. Because at this point in the book, and what I got out of it, and obviously I'm probably gonna back your Kickstarter because I'm actually really interested in this. One of the things that is really interesting is that she seems uncentered and very, not exactly functioning and not necessarily healing. And
Right.
this kind of recenters her and repurposes her. And in a lot of ways, it gives her a reason to do something. And I don't know how she's going to come out of after these 4 issues, if she's going to be fully healed or better off, or if she's going to make it, or whatever it's going to be. But whatever it is, she now has a purpose. And that's what's
Yeah.
really cool about this, is that we have a character who is, I guess, not purposed and is getting the opportunity, and is almost getting her calling in life.
Yeah. And it's cool too. We have certain elements where I want to include elements like where she survives the situations, and it has nothing to do with being the strongest monster. It's all about being able to use your wits in the situation and that kind of thing, and survive till the next level, as it were. And like I say, some of the cryptids turn out to be on our side, some are not. And there's sometimes it's a hoax. Like, there's always what we tried to do, if you like this kind of thing, and this is new for me, each issue will now end on a cliffhanger, right? Like, it'll always be a little bit of what we call a twist ending. And you'll be like, wait, he's what? Like, I don't want to spoil it right now, but it does turn out that halfway through of it, one of the cryptids is a hoax, and there's a guy like piloting it because he's trying to interfere with it. Anyway, it's a whole other subplot. But the idea is that we try to keep you guessing a little. Like, if you go, well, hey, I know everything about, the Mothman. I know exactly what it's going to be. It's probably not what you think it's going to be. I'll give you another, for instance. Like, we talked about how Bigfoot he's the thinking ape. He has these lines and he's this very erudite kind of speaker. Well, on the other hand, you have the Mothman, who can't speak at all, and he communicates in a really spooky way he flashes these red eye lights at you. And so the reader has to interpret what he's saying by reading his eye lights.
No, again, it goes back to that. This is fun. And I cut up an interview with somebody, and they basically said comics have to be fun again, and it's a big issue, I feel, and it's kind of fun when you do stuff like that and you get into it, and you have a good time with it. But you did mention something very interesting about being a sci-fi writer and going into that, and even going and ending now issues on a cliffhanger. And what is that like? Because I don't think there is one way how to write a comic. I've heard about page turns. Obviously, I'm writing a comic. I am very early on. It is not something that is at the forefront right now, and I'm at least a year out, if not longer. and I'm taking my time. But I don't think you need to have a page turn in a comic to have a good book. I don't think you need to not have a page turn. I think there's a million ways how to write something.
Yeah. Thanks
And
for saying that. Thanks for saying that. Because I'm actually, look, between you and me, Andrew, I'm a little bit nervous about this because before all the other books, so we did 5 Kickstarters, right? But every time it was the stories were collected. You didn't have to get one of the other ones. Now, if you follow my other series, you can go back and they are all connected. But if you buy number 4, there's a short story in it and you don't have to read the others to enjoy it, right? I would say it's a little bit more like an episode of The Twilight Zone or Night Gallery, something like that. But now this time, for the first time, and this is why I'm happy you said that, because, I was like, well, I wanted to end on a cliffhanger. And I know that a lot of people do it. And that's the way you hope that the reader will come back for the next issue, right? So, but I'm uncertain about it because, well, your Kickstarter backers, probably what I would do is I'll do the first one on a Kickstarter, then I'll do 2 and 3 together, and that'll still be ending on a cliffhanger. And then your last one will be, you can either buy number 4 or it'll be a trade. Because the trade, it'll be about 106 pages. And like you mentioned earlier, it is a self-contained story. Like it won't go, like there won't be like an ongoing after that. It's like one adventure. Not too different from the feel of, like I was saying earlier, we call it a prestige format graphic novel. One of them is like the Books of Magic from DC, if you're familiar with the Books of Magic. And what I mean by that, there'll be really high quality art covers, and it's like the thicker stock paper and thicker stock covers. And,
yeah, we're going to talk about that. And which I'm not exactly familiar with that. I'm 30, so that might have been a little bit before my time. And I came into comics, graphic novels when I was like 12, and then I actually started collecting when I was like 17, 18. So I am 12 years in, and I love variants and I love exclusives and things of that nature. But again, I don't go backwards, but I do have some stuff from the 70s and 80s graded. So
wow, man, yeah, I love stuff like that too. And we do always try to have like homage covers to some older books, people like that. And I also now do CGC books.
We're going to talk about that too, but I am curious about having thicker covers. That stuff, having gloss stuff too, because that's kind of a throwback. And that I don't know if it's an Eclipse throwback, but it's kind of Eclipse is massive sci-fi, things like that. The hollow foils, those are fun.
See, that's got sort of a shimmering effect, right?
That goes back to, I think, like Cyberforce with Top Cow back in the day, and there's some good stuff with that. So what is that like? Because that's kind of like the sci-fi Top Cow old school.
We try to make well, the thickness of the covers is something that basically we do different tiers on the Kickstarter. And the first one is it's like a regular comic book. It's oversized. That's what you might call giant size. It's 32 pages. But then it kind of like moves up, and like the next one up is like a thicker cover, and it has what we call a chrome enhanced logo. And what I mean by that in this case, just the image would be the same, but if you tilt the book, the logo will shine at you, right? And then the next level is something like this, where it's some chrome in the characters and some in the logo. See, in this one, the actual robot parts, see how their skin is like reflective, kind of?
Yeah, that's awesome.
So that's the third highest tier. And then the fourth one is what you and I call the printable hollow foil. And that's where the whole thing, it almost looks like it's shimmering, kind of. And when you see them in the sunlight, it's crazy cool. Like inside, you don't always get the full effect, right? But then you see it with like the sun or a really bright light. It's like, whoa, it's like a beam coming off the darn thing. So we're going to do that again too. And that's something that what you get there, it's what they call a 100-pound cover stock or a 12-point. It's very thick. It's almost cardboardy, which is great if you're going to have them graded. You got a high percentage of possibly getting 9.8. But we do it because in our case, some of these are the more expensive books. Andrew, by more expensive to our customer point, ours is the upgraded one is $20, and then the most expensive one is $30. So not super expensive, but
that's kind of what I buy and sell.
Yeah. I was going to say that's probably right in your wheelhouse, right around that $100 variance. There's a lot of variance in that $100 category.
I play around in a lot of $20, $30 books. I don't really even play around in $100 books, because what I find is actually the real value and where I make most of my money is a $20 book has pound for pound beats $100 book.
Sure.
Where
Yeah.
if I buy $100 book, sometimes with Zenoscope, I can only get $180 out of it. So I only make $80 on it. With a $20 book, I can sell for 60, 65. So I make more money per pound than I do. And I actually think it's more affordable, where more people can afford a $20 book.
Right.
That,
Yeah.
or $60 book, I should say, what I sell it for, than they can afford a $180 book that I'm selling. And I'd rather sell more of a book. And to be quite honest, the books that I sell, a lot of those $100 books are sort of nude, and I'm not a big nude guy.
Right.
It doesn't do it for me. And I've had friends on eBay who have lost their stores because of that.
Right.
And I would rather run a good business and have a business than not have one at all for money, because it's just easier. But I digress. But I don't think $20-$30 is that bad on Kickstarter.
Yeah, I almost went to, because they say that, you want to have a tier that's very exclusive. We're collectors, right? I'm a comic collector. I'm a retailer, all those great things. I freaking love the comics business. So I always want to have something that's kind of like your top level. And we guesstimated that would be about a $40 book. I'm not quite to the $50 level. And these are not metal, by the way. It's a holofoil, which is different. Holofoil is a treated cardboard. So it is much less expensive. So in my case, we said $40, but then when I looked at my discount that I was getting for printing X amount, I was like, you know what, I'm charging a little bit too much to the customer. Like I want to set a high value for the product, like we believe in the product. That said, I don't want to lose the guy who says things like, hey, I like the collectible books. For 20, I would have bought it, but for 40, forget it. I'd rather take my swing at 30 and see what he says.
So you mentioned something really interesting, is that and this is actually interesting, that you get a discount, and obviously what you get for what you're printing. What is that like, to realize that you can make money, you could pass a discount on to your consumer and your customer, and it works? So I'll tell a quick story. I just sold a big batch of books to somebody on eBay, and he said, yo, would you do it for 30 and I'll pay $11 shipping, and would you do this one for 50 and I'll pay another $11? I said, no, that's not going to work, because you're going to pay $4 over for that. Rather, why don't you pay 30 and 57? I'll give you free shipping on the second book. And so and then he bought another 2 books, and I saved him $33 in shipping. And so, I try to find discounts for my customers. And what is that like? Because I think it's very important right now that people understand that if you're getting it for X price and you pass those savings on, it's so important in so many ways. Because I don't know how many creators openly say that and actually actively do it. And when they do it, I think creators should absolutely say it, so that their customers know, hey, look, I could easily charge you $40, but this is only costing X, and I'm making more than enough profit on you.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a good way to say it, Andrew, because I want to be, hey, look, we all want to be profitable, but it's another thing to be potentially gouging a customer. Or I'm still at the level where I want to have guys like you and retailers and people that will buy it. Like I have a tier that I think it's $88 or $98 gets you 20 copies of the book, including the high price ones. Because the idea, do I lose a little bit on that? I do. But on the other hand, it puts 20 books out into the world each order, right? So I'd almost be stupid not to take that deal, because it's like, if it was marketing, you would have done it you'd have took it on the chin worse than that. So I will always do that. And I like to say, and thanks for giving me the chance to say it on the air, if there's any retailers that want to work out some kind of deal, I'm all ears. I do have one thing going with, do you know who Javon Jordan is? He's a rapper and he does some books. And anyway, he's
I feel like he just, did some weird thing with Jewel Hammer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't Javon, didn't he do the Michael Jordan Gun Honey cover?
Yes, that is him. Yeah.
I love the guy.
Awesome.
I was trying to find a joke. I'm sorry.
No. Well, I was trying to determine if you really knew him or not, and you do. And he's a hell of a great guy. And
he just did the Run Jewel covers with and that. With MegaCon, he just did the Hail Crow thing of like Super Mario Bros. 3.
Well, get this. He says that and he and I have collaborated. When I say collaborated, we've backed each other's products and we've talked behind the scenes about stuff. And he said something to the effect of, hey, he's designing a store variant for one of his, he reps certain storefronts, right? And has these connections. I was like, oh my God, bro. Yeah. Are you kidding? Because in my case, I'll have the printing cost. I'm not even sure what the details are yet, but I definitely want to do it.
He's great. He's great. It's the one book that I regret is not getting that Michael Jordan cover. It's the one book. It's such a pain to find. It's not even a money problem. It's impossible to find it, and it's impossible to find it in like a 9.8 CGC. And it's just I'm shooting myself for it. And it's a conquest. So I don't want anybody to find it for me. I have to do it on my own. I want to make it that crystal clear. But he's great. He's great.
Yeah, man, I'm thrilled to work with him. And like I say, I'm at the level where anything like that is so helpful for me. I always do the deal. I want to show you this real quick too, because I think you might dig it. For comic collectors, we're putting these out. We call it the Terran Artifact. It's a laser engraved wood carving is what it is.
That's
right.
Cool.
So you can get your favorite cover design etched into the, it's a slab of wood.
That's wild.
I thought you might dig that, man. So listen, yeah, I'll hook you up, Andrew, because some of these things I want you to see so I can look. The truth is, look, I'm a collector, right? And it is usually the voice of the collector and the retailer that are determining what the levels are going to be for some of these products that I'm trying to write and publish, right? And like what kind of collectibles do better and what kind of merch does better. And like I say, we're trying some new things with this Cryptid book, and you're going to see a little bit of different stuff. One of them is the wood engravings, the Terran Artifact, we call it. It comes with a cover set, by the way, of 5 covers.
It's very cool. And this is one of the things is that on Kickstarter, and I'm a strong believer of this, is that you have to try different things. You have to experiment. And I think it's, within reason, meaning that you shouldn't do something completely crazy that could bankrupt your entire company or your comics, but, trying a new artist, trying a new cover, trying, spot foils, trying, things like cards, and I think it's very interesting when you are trying things. And right now, I mean, just full disclosure, in my eBay business, I'm bringing in different SKUs to see what works, what doesn't work. And I'm a strong believer that, and some of this stuff is working. And it's kind of cool when you actually see it in real time. So what is that like for you? Because, something could work well and something could not work well, but and then I forget who said it. Thomas Edison said it really well. I didn't fail. I learned a way how not to do it. I think it's the quote. And so what is that like? Because obviously if something doesn't work, that's great. Not to do it the next time. And guess what? If you think community level, everybody else in the community says, cool, that didn't work, or I see how he did it, maybe I could reach out to and ask him a question, and maybe I could figure out how to make it work, and then that benefits everybody.
Well, man, I'm glad you asked. And that's something, I'm a pretty good coach on a few things, and I'll tell you why. I wish I could stay here on the air and say, man, it's because I'm so smart and I do everything correct. It's not, it's the opposite. Like I've done so many of the mistakes that I could probably tell you at least the top 10 that most people make. And by the way, that's one of the tiers we do on the Kickstarter. If you are like a beginning creator or an aspiring writer or artist, and you're looking to get your project made, by which I mean published into a releasable Kickstarter format, it's a coaching thing that I do out of 4 sessions. We've done it twice now. And basically what we do is we help you make your book. And the reason why, and you've probably noticed this, man, we're all creative people, and creative people, they're the best, right? They're the most fun to hang out with. They're usually the craziest, right? But sometimes it's hard to get them to put something over the finish line in terms of a project. And many of my friends that are writers and artists, they struggle with that. And it's always something along the lines of, well, I just need to, everything has to be perfect. Look, man, no, everything doesn't have to be perfect. What you need is a quality team around you, all saying, let's do the best we can. But then when the curtain goes up, we all go on stage. You know what I mean? The show goes on. And that's why, I'm kind of lucky in some regards, because so with the Cryptid book, this is our 11th book, something like that. It's the 6th Kickstarter. I know that, but it's enough now to where I've done some of the stuff wrong, and I can tell people what to avoid. And like I say, I'm trying new things too. This thing with the setting the low goal was something I'd heard about, right? And a couple of guys I talked to said things like, hey, I put it at 500, man, I'm doing 20 grand or whatever. You probably know who I'm talking about. But I don't know if that would work for me. And listen, let's be honest, what I'm doing is a little different, right? These are science fiction stories that are a little bit sort of trippy and visually weird, right? And they're not necessarily, they're not too sexy or anything like that, which I lack that element. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not disparaging anybody. Look, I love a beautiful woman as much as the next guy, but my books are not that. That's not what you're going to get here. And I don't even do the cover because then it would sort of misrepresent what story I'm trying to tell, and basically what this is, it is like a wild episode of the Twilight Zone in which a young woman can communicate with cryptids, and they're trying to tell her something vitally important, and she can't quite figure out what is happening.
But isn't that cool though? Because isn't that what comics are? I mean, that's what media is, and that's, I think, the era we're in. Is that I think 6 years ago this story would be a lot harder to put out there. I really do. And I think we're at the stage now where Stranger Things has opened up doors. I think Big Bang has opened up doors. I think there's a bunch of stuff that has opened up doors. I also think that getting something and getting things in media is really difficult. Getting anything to Netflix is hard.
Yeah. And, I'm so glad that you made a great point, and I'm so glad that you said this, which was, you mentioned the X-Files, right? Which, let's be honest, at this point, that's a very old show. So, man, I was thrilled to hear you mention that one because that was very much.
I'm a big David Duchovny fan. Thanks to Californication. He's great. And then I actually did not see the X-Files first. I saw Californication, and then I went backwards. And so I hate to say it that like I saw it in the back end. I think it was coming out when I was way too young, but I did see it, and it's great. It's absolutely wonderful. I love just all of it. There's better seasons than others. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah. Agreed. And what we were really shooting for was something in that vein of, because it is very visual, and you'll see what I mean from some of the previews. I'm a big believer in the power of comics to tell stories without necessarily words. And the kind of words that we have sort of sprinkled into this project, it is things like, you got the alien grays who talk funny. Then you got the alien blues who talk funny. Then you got Bigfoot who talks funny. And you got the men in black who also have sort of like this weird slang. And I love scripts where people sound weird, right? And then in between that, we also have the lyrics of this rock band. One of the elements here, and actually you might find this interesting, I wanted to have elements of music and lyrics in the story, call it the Cryptid. And I love music and I love metal music. And we thought it'd be cool to have little snippets of lyrics, maybe where it was showing a scene. But to use even a tiny portion of the lyrics in a comic scene, if it's more than 3 or 4 words, you automatically can get flagged for a copyright violation. Like as soon as you can tell what it is, like there's almost no wiggle room. So we were like, okay, so what do we got to do? So what we came up with, we designed our own rock band. It's a 1980s rock band called Turn Back Dorothy. And they're like shock rockers. They're kind of like Motley Crue or Kiss, right? And when you hear the radio playing in Call of the Cryptid, it's their song that's coming out and their words. So they're not actually in the story, but whenever there's a song playing, it's their, like they have lore in the story, sort of.
Yeah, and what is even that? Like, it's fun because obviously you can create things and then that can take off in its own direction and it can go its own way. And it's kind of fun. And this is what I mean, where I think the door has opened up in comics to do stuff like this. And you don't need to do a bad girl art comic. I mean, I saw a lot of bad girl art stuff and I love bad girl art. But I'm also a reader. I'm a collector and I appreciate good stories. And look, I don't just sell bad girl art stuff. I mean, just because it sells and it moves doesn't mean I don't appreciate books like other stuff. I mean, one of my favorite books of all times is Fables, and that's not art.
Yeah. Hey, quick shout out. If you like Fables, you'll like this book. I'm a huge Fables fan. This is exactly the type of book I'm talking about. If you would have said back then, it's Bill Willingham, right? Am I getting his name right?
Bill Willingham and Mark something.
Yeah.
Like, or it might be Will Buckingham, or it's Billingham, or whatever it is. It's Mark like Buckingham, I think, too, did the art on a bunch of them.
but they were able to make something magical, and it ran for 100 and just a terrific body of work.
150 issues, bunch of spin-offs. Jack of Fables had 9 volumes, and then they did like another 12. It's crazy. It's still ongoing. It's awesome, and it just came out for its 20th anniversary. Beautiful, beautiful set. I got it for like $130 on Amazon. Best $130 I've spent on a graphic novel in probably the last 2 years.
But we're a huge fan of world building, and that's definitely one where it's probably some of the best world building coming from Fables. And talk about the lifespan of the series is just incredible.
And then so I just like this, and I like the fact that it's X-Files. I like the fact that you don't represent that this has a bad girl name. You're representing your covers, because it's not about a sexy girl. It's about a woman.
Right. In this case, she's a teenager.
She's a teenager, and she's figuring out how to really, communicate and potentially stop an alien invasion and deal with a lot of problems that are occurring, and a lot is being placed on her, and it's almost like a maturing level for her and a maturing point.
You have a great point, because I sort of borrowed the idea a little bit from an old movie called The Changeling with George C. Scott. It was a ghost story. And the reason why he was able to see a ghost was that his wife and son had recently been killed in this truck accident. But it made him like psychologically sensitive so that spirits could contact him. And that's what we did in this book. The reason why the aliens are able to be sensitive to Cadence is because of her father recently passing. And they're actually there for something else. It's a routine DNA sweep, and they sort of catch her in the net. That's how the story gets going.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of stuff. And also what I love about your story is that, and I said this before, it's only 4 issues. So we know there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. And that also, for me, and I don't know how you feel, but when I look at certain people's stories, I'm like, you're going to have 16, 20 issues, and you're producing 3 or 4 a year. It's still 5 years out. And for me, it's a big money commitment.
Right,
it's
right.
expensive. It's time. It's also like, I hate to say this, but like if you're producing every 3 months or every 4 months or every 6 months, I'm going to lose interest after a while.
Yeah. I was thinking that too. I'd say we want to wrap this up. It'd probably go a little longer than a year, but my hope is it could be one every 3 months is about what our time frame is. Maybe I can write it faster than that, but boy, I'd love to talk to you about this subject. The process of making Kickstarters and videos and the many spinning plates that go with it, it takes away from the time where, like right now, I should be sending the lettering script and you have to balance these many disparate objects. And we're actually talking about this on one of the podcasts. Mine is it's usually probably about 75% creativity, 25% marketing. But during the Kickstarter campaign, it flips. It's probably about 20% creativity, 80% marketing. Because of course, I love to go on the shows, and we do our own videos over here too on the madness and that kind of thing. So, I don't know what the answer is, but I do know at some point I'm going to need some kind of helper.
Yeah, no, when I ran mine, I did a lot of media, I did a lot of pushing, and I still managed to do like 16 interviews that month. And I could tell you that I was in a weird time where I was out of work and I was taking a test to get a certification, and I was exhausted every single day. And between studying, between doing a little bit of work, preparing for my test, and then marketing the hell out of what I was doing, I was exhausted, and I have no idea what it's going to look like when I do this on a 40-hour work week, maintaining my show. And it is a job on top of a job on top of a job, and it is not fun. And I'm, I don't know the answer either, but I don't have enough money to hire somebody to do it for me.
Yeah. I'm the same way. I want to, and I do work with professional designers and letterers and everything so far as the creation of the book, enough to a level where when you get the final book in your hands, that's one thing we always say to people, the Earth Dog Studios guarantee, if you get the book and it's not a better looking book than a DC, Marvel, or Image book, send it back to me. I'll give you your money back, because that's our goal every time. And that's with the chrome, the stories, the art, everything. But that stuff said, when I get to like making the videos and that kind of thing, that's when it all comes back to me, right? Like I've got to, like one of the things I had to learn is that I've got to be able to interact with the audience, and I got to go out and meet people and, shake hands and kiss babies, as it were, right? Which is okay. I got a little bit of a public speaking background and that kind of thing. And of course, now I do 2 live shows a week. That's over on Comic Related Madness, if you'd ever like to stop in. Andrew, I'd love to talk to you on the air too, buddy. And of course, we also started the YouTube channel, which is where we talk about the top 11 cultural topics of the day. We do things like top 11 post-apocalyptic films and top 11 video game theme songs, stuff like that. And again, with the end result being, I don't mind telling you, my end result is I'm just trying to build and communicate with a following who will then follow my books, right? At the end of the day, I'm a writer. I'm real grateful for these other things that have happened. Thank you very much, everyone. And man, thanks for having me on your show too. I love being on podcasts. I can't really believe it's all happening, to be honest with you. You know what I mean? Like in the last 3 years, we have so many more titles and so many more videos and all that. I can't even believe it. Right. So I'm just excited to see what will happen next. What we said was, let's try Call of the Cryptid. And then, like you noticed, it's going to be 1, 2, 3 in Kickstarter. It'll be 4 issues, but it'll be 3 Kickstarters wrapping it up. And then we submit them to publishers, which I have half decent luck with publishers compared to some.
Yeah, no, it's so interesting. And obviously, I mean, I'm a strong believer that every writer needs to have a podcast now.
Yeah, you kind of need to.
Me and Tyler Carpenter were talking about this, where, I'll interview somebody and then I'm like, cool, thanks. And then they don't have a show. And obviously I don't have a book. So what I promote is not exactly a perfect fit. But if I did have a book, exchanging of interviews, exchanging of shows and things of that nature are very much a currency, I feel, right now.
Yeah, listen, I'm totally telling you the truth, man. What you're doing is critically important right now. And I am grateful to all the podcasters and reviewers and YouTube channelers. And let me tell you why, because I totally mean it. For customers to find these new projects, and it can be a Kickstarter project, it can be a book, a comic book, and a record, music. For them, they have to go through the process of what they call discovery. In other words, they have to kind of find it on their own. They don't resist. They don't respond well to a company saying, you should buy this, you should buy this. It's too much like an advertisement. But if somebody's watching a podcast or a YouTube channel or a YouTube, it could be any place they see it. But if they see it, it's like they discovered it. It triggers something different in their mind, like a customer.
It's not even so much comics, it's anything. So I interview a lot of wrestlers. I interview a lot of, cosplayers. I interview, a lot of voice actors. Voice actors are a little bit different because a lot of them are working either in Texas or Cali, but there's plenty of indie wrestlers who have gone on to do bigger things, and they were on a bunch of shows that they got noticed by WWE without a doubt. And, I was there first, and without a doubt. And it's so important. And I appreciate the compliment, because
yeah, man, for sure.
Certain people who I don't think understand that in the industry, to be quite candid. I think there's a lot of people who take advantage and don't really understand how important an interview is and how it's going to be used and how important it is. And once an interview is done, I mean, it has a lifespan forever.
Yeah, it's evergreen. I tell people that too. And by the way, you have good questions too. I can appreciate that. Thanks, man, for doing your prep work for an interview.
My prep work in legitimately an hour and a half.
You did it. I try to do that too when I talk to folks. And I admit there's sometimes I'll go, because I'm in a situation now where, like, the first couple went okay. So now they asked me to do 2 shows a week, which I'm going to do for now because I got this Kickstarter, right? And that's 2 live ones and a recorded one, which is kind of a lot for me, but hang on, ready? So on the Friday night, sometimes it can be 4 or 5, 6 people. It's like a panel, like you talk about how you make characters, for example. But, when there's that many people drop in and out without being seen, like I'm not even sure who, sometimes I don't know the person at all. So, it puts me at a little disadvantage. So I try to keep the questions kind of general, but man, I respect what people like you are doing. There's a lot of divisive opinions about media, right? And I won't get into that conversation tonight, but I will say that the people who are doing the podcasting and the sort of grassroots reporting, that is where the action is. And that is who customers trust and who customers believe. So I always say this to new creators if they're starting out. Start by reaching out to somebody that might have a podcast and talk to you on the air. That's how you'll get one customer. Then try and get to another one. That's how you'll get two. And
I have my own advice for them too. And what I say is that don't say, do you have any openings? Tell me what your book is. Tell me what you say. Hey, I saw your show. Really like this person you interviewed. Here's my book. And here's a digital copy of my book or a preview of it. Because I am more likely to respond. If you say, hey, do you have any openings? The chances are going to be like, hey, what's your book? And then you have to learn how to pitch, in which you have to say, hey, really like your show, like what you're doing. You know, this is what my concept is. I shouldn't have to ask, because whenever I have to ask somebody when they pitch me, it never, ever is a good way to start. Ever.
Yeah. You get some good names. You get some good names too, Andrew.
Just that's all I'm asking is just make it so that I know what your product is within 10 seconds of reading it. Because I guarantee you I'm 50% to 70% more likely to say yes than if I have to ask you what your product is. But that's just how I function. And the easier you make it for me, everybody, the more likely I'm willing to do it. And that's the whole thing. And it sounds weird, but I'm busy. So, you know, if you could save me legitimately 3 minutes or 5 minutes of my time, it gets me that much closer to a yes or saying, let's figure it out. But I digress on that point. And I do appreciate the compliments because it's always nice to be appreciated and being told that at least I have some interesting guests.
Yeah, you do have some good ones, man. I was familiar with your show and I've seen it a couple times. I think you do a good job. You know, some of the podcasts are somewhat lacking, right? And I appreciate that you put professionalism into it, and it's something I feel that it shows.
Well, I learned that lesson once, and it was a rough interview, and I was not prepared, and I was off my game. And after that, early on in my career, maybe almost 8 years ago, and I only needed to learn that lesson once. And the person was like, "Yo, we could redo it." And ever since then, you know, I still have bad interviews, but they're far and few between. But you know, I think a lot of people wing it, and I think a lot of people do not treat this how it should be treated, where this is a job to me. Whether I'm making money or I'm not making money, it is a job and it should be treated as such. Yep. But I don't want to get into that too much either. That's a controversial topic in of itself. And believe me, there's been plenty of discussions that have gotten overly heated with me and a bunch of people on that. So I digress. But I do want to talk about rewards with you because you got a bunch of cool stuff. And man, I like the fact that you have, you know, just a dollar tier where it's almost like a tip jar. And I think that's important. And I think it's important to actually name it in a very cool way. It's the signal from beyond, which I like.
Yeah. We try to put, like, you know, at the end of the day, I'm a writer. So we try to put a little writing into the Kickstarters. It's, again, nothing against anybody, but I get tired of seeing cover A, cover B, cover C. So all ours have a little bit of a funny name. And that's what we call it too when we order it.
And then I like how you have the optic graft, which is
the optic graft and the deluxe optic graft are your digital tiers.
And I like that. I think it's funny. I enjoy it. And then you obviously have, you know, the cover A's, the cover B's. I think this is cover C. So I might be slightly out of order, and hopefully, you know, I think this is potentially cover A. I think it is.
That's cover A, right? That's by Erwin Arosa. That's the main cover, and that's your $10 book, which we wanted sort of a reasonable price point. I know that, you know, Kickstarter books can go anywhere from the lowest you're probably going to see is about $6, right? All the way up to about, well, you know, the sky's the limit, really. If you do it that way.
I've seen cover A's on Kickstarter for $25.
It's too much. Too much. Yeah.
Like not to throw Paul, but I've seen Paul do an $8 cover A, and so I've seen it all over. I typically, and I'll be very honest, and I'm a consumer, I'm a collector, I get capped out on a cover A at around 15 on the high end. I really feel comfortable $10-12 on a cover A, but at 15 is pushing it.
Right.
And if you're at $20 for a cover A, I'm probably out. So I appreciate the fact that you have affordable pricing, because not everybody can afford a $20, $25, $30, $40 book.
Ours is basically 10, 20, 30 are your ranges. And there's one in there for like a 22. And what you're seeing for those upgraded books is they're either hollow foil books or what we call enhanced chrome design, where some of the logo and some of the design is chrome plated. And some of it will even be colored. And there's going to be some things too, like one of them, for the first time, people have been saying to us, well, why don't you release a black and white book, right? Which is sort of in the feel of the old 70s Curtis magazines like Vampirella.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And anyway, it's like eerie or creepy magazine and has this sort of 70s horror feel, right? So even the interior is in black and white, right? So in theory, that is a slightly less expensive book. But then we did something, which is, he said, hey, what if we put this bright, it's like a fluorescent green shimmering on the logo. And I loved it so much we went with it, which makes it actually more than the other books because it's what they call a spot foil. So it's not necessarily the cheapest one. I think it's $22. But man, I promise this thing will be cool. When you hold it, you're going to go, this is such a cool book.
So let's talk about that, because that's really cool. I think that's cover C, I believe.
Yeah, isn't that neat?
Yeah. So what is that like? Because I mean,
we call that the noir edition. And how that came up, I'm in a couple of the art groups and we submit stuff all the time for images to be previewed online and this kind of thing. And I'm in a bunch of the black and white prelim art groups. And we always share black and white art. And almost every time I share our black and white prelims, because Erwin does these grayscales, which are, I mean, they're amazing, right? Actually, I got one of them behind me there. See that? Yeah. And they're just so cool. People always say, you ought to put a black and white version of this out. And we had never done it. And then we made this poster. It's the one you see behind me. It's the Hunchback. And we did that in what they call a Gothic poster. It's printed on a shiny paper and it has a bright red, like a blood dripping logo. And it looks like a Halloween poster, and it came out great. So this time when it rolled around, this is called the Noir Edition. And what it is, it's a full 32-page black and white version of Call of the Cryptid, and it is in a numbered and lettered version. What I mean by that, like, I think it says on there only 100 of them. I forget the number right now. It's either 50 or 100, but it'll be numbered, like it'll only be those, and then they won't be resurrected.
That's cool. That's that. Yeah. I like it. It's cool and it's fun, and it's also the idea that, I mean, I'm sure that I forget who did it, but it was a black and white X-Men book, I think, where it was in color, and then there was a black and white version of it. And I think it was Claremont, maybe Jim Lee, I don't know, maybe somebody else. I forget who, but it's not important. Reading it in color and reading it in black and white is so different.
A different experience, yeah.
And I've read Court of the Owls by Scott and Greg Capello. Great book. I think that's how you say his last name, but I could be wrong. So if anybody wants to correct me, feel free to. But that book in black and white is so different.
It's beautiful. Yeah. And I love that stuff, man. And that's how the whole idea came up. And what we really wanted to do was to take advantage of the situation, because we had these great black and white art pages and people were saying things like, man, I'd like to see the book like this. And it finally, the stars finally aligned. So we're going to have one this time. And I don't think you're going to sell 100 of them. No, this might be something that you do 50, I'm guessing 40. But what a cool collectible. If you're and I mean, the green shimmering logo is going to sell it. It's going to look so cool, man. Because these things, when they have that shine, you turn it a certain way and you're like, oh, this is freaking cool,
I mean, I think it's awesome. I think I'm going to go pick myself up on it. And the nice thing about this is that I have 35 days to finance it, essentially.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Really helpful during tax season. I'm not going to lie. It's so helpful. I just paid my taxes. I just funded a Roth IRA. So
congratulations.
I need my spending a little bit calmed down, a little bit for like 3 weeks. So it's not due for a while if I pick it up. So thank God.
Well, and I'll tell you what, I always have been saying, if somebody was a retailer and or a podcaster, if you were a physical backer, I would work out some kind of deal with you. For instance, the international folks, it's all buy one, get one, because really the cost for them is in the shipping, right? Not really the book. So I got to give them something for free. And the way I see it, if you're hooking up the people that are podcasters, interviewers, retailers, hey, maybe they're giving one to a customer, maybe they're showing their friend, maybe they mention it on the air. You know how all that works.
I'm just gonna back it.
I got you, man. I got you. I got you.
It looks awesome and it's super cool. And obviously I like that. I think this might be cover B. I could be wrong though. I mean,
Yeah,
better.
you got him right. Yep, that's cover B. That's the Encounter, we call it. And it's a little bit flavored like the old movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It's sort of our version of it, which is Cadence encountering the alien Gray for the first time as he is on his DNA sweep. And you can see she has her Vespa there in the foreground. She rides her Vespa around. And on her hip there, she's got that red. It's a transistor radio is what it is. You can't quite see it in that scene, but it's sort of crackling with this mysterious power.
It's very, very cool. And that's just an option. I think this is another cover.
Yeah, and what you have here, this is one of our homage covers. Erwin and I always do classic homages. And I don't know if you'd remember it, but this is a famous Jack Kirby cover. It's from Fantastic Four 51. It's called This Man, This Monster. And ours, of course, is called This Mystery, This Monster. But if you...
It's fun stuff. And I actually don't remember the cover.
Yeah, it's the one. It is the Thing standing where Bigfoot is. And Sue Storm is where Cadence is. And the alien is Reed Richards and stuck in the disaster zone or whatever it is, the forgotten zone. But when you see them next to each other, you'll go, oh, I totally get it now.
And then, I mean, obviously, I don't know every cover. There's no way I can. And I am, again, not as familiar with Marvel as I am with DC. But obviously, I mean, homage covers are freaking awesome.
Yeah, they're always fun to have. And there's people that will collect it just for that.
Yeah, I know people who in their collections will only collect certain things, and they only collect. I know people who only collect Spider-Man 300 covers.
Right.
And
yep. Sure.
That's it. Everything that touches that's all they collect. And it's really interesting. They got some weird stuff, and then it's awesome, and then it's brilliant. And they got like things that are like they have stuff from Kanto, they have stuff from Silk, they have stuff from Born of Blood, and it's so interesting and it's really cool. And this is in that vein. And then we also have this right here.
Yeah, thanks for showing that. Now, this is our top tier. And what I did here, I reached outside the box, and this is an artist different than Erwin. Previously, on our campaigns, when we do variants, I usually keep all the artwork by the same artist. And I'll tell you why. I know that there is some wisdom to using different artists for your variant campaigns, and you will bring in some of their fans across campaigns. And in fact, we do that on our other book, Water Wars 2288. That is 4 different artists. But in this series, it's so well known for being Erwin's style of sort of hand-painted art. He does all the covers, except for that last one. We had one hired out, which is by a guy by the name of, he's Italian, so I'm going to try and say his name, okay? Please bear with me. He's Massimiliano Veltri. And the work is just outstanding. And what we did in this case, I gave him the instructions. And what they are, he's more like a fine artist, you see. And I gave him prompts. And what the prompts were, because he's got all the elements of the cover, right? You got the alien Gray in the center there. You've got Cadence on the lower left, right next to her Vespa. On the lower right, you've got Bigfoot peering in with his radiation goggles. And right above the alien craft and sort of in the sky, you have this sort of declassified glowing text, which will be printed on hollow foil. This thing is going to look sick. It'll be a cool sci-fi collectible. And that's the one I was telling you. Originally, I had that sucker priced for $40, thinking that's probably about right. And it's it's your top one. But then I looked and said, man, I don't know, because when you average it across the other ones, I felt that price was too high. And I might have sold a couple for that. But I wanted to pull it back toward, man, $30 is already a pricey book. And ours, you can get the set. You can buy one just for $10. You can buy one of the other chrome ones for about $20, right around there. Or you can buy the top dog for $30. Or if you're so inclined, the best deal is you get a cover set of 5 books for $58.
Yeah, let's actually talk even about that a little bit because, and I know we mentioned it before, but even just being reasonable, because that's the other thing too, is that, and using certain numbers, everybody knows what $10 looks like. Everybody knows what 20 looks like. Everybody knows what 30 looks like, and everybody knows what 40 looks like. And there is a concept where using round numbers is helpful. Like when you say $30, I know what $30 looks like.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know what $58 looks like, but if I'm getting bucks,
Right.
I'm not at that point. I'm too deep in that the price doesn't matter at that point, and that I just want all 5 covers. And I'm like, I believe in this, and this seems cool, and I can't decide between 3 covers, and it's going to run me the same price. So screw it. I might as well get everything I want. But it's very cool to the fact that, understanding how to price something, because I think, and feel free to disagree with me, it's better to sell out of all 50, or if you keep 5 for yourself or 2 for yourself, it's better that you sell out of 48 and then they're out there and maybe you sold them out for less and then they're gone, than to have them laying around and not laying around, but you know what I mean, right?
I totally do. And the idea is, especially with some of these, they're going to have like these high production designs on them in the holofoils. You got the chance that some collector somewhere is going to be hanging out with his collector friend and be like, whoa, what's this? Because when you see it, that's how cool it looks. He will say, whoa, what's this? You know what I mean? And that you can't buy that kind of advertising. It's great advertising.
I agree. I agree. And also, there's another thing where I hate to say this, and this might be dirty to say it to some degree, but all of a sudden, let's say in 2-3 years from now, it ends up on eBay and it's going for like $150. That's also a good piece of advertising. I mean, I just sold a book that I bought on a base cost is very cheap. And guess what? There's an eBay record of that. And I'm pretty sure, I don't want to say whose book it is, because I don't know if they're going to be angry or happy, but I'm pretty sure they're thrilled because it was the first one that was sold on eBay. And it was for a really good price, and it sets what that book is worth. And it's worth a lot more than what they used to sell for on their website, which changes the dynamic to a degree. And so I would imagine that that's the other thing too, that sometimes this stuff does come up, and it's good when it sells for a good chunk of money.
Yeah, and it's, I'm still learning it, right? Like it's all part of the process. And there is an element, like you were saying earlier, you want to have a high value to the product, but you also want to you want the customer to feel like they got hooked up, like they got a good value too. I give a lot of digital stuff too. So of course, all these come with a digital copy of the book. It comes with the downloadable wallpapers, comes with 10 songs. And it also comes with 16 digital books from my library of digital partner friends.
It's a lot of stuff there.
It is, yeah. Digital, man, you got to have a good digital package these days because there's so many digital people. You got to have bang for the buck. This one, my digital package, you ready for this? It's $1 more this time. Before it was $6. That's pretty reasonable, right? This time it's $7. But the $7 gets you all the stuff that I just mentioned, including the maps. We're all nerds over here.
It's all right. I hate to admit this, but I did buy a map today. But it's not a map of what people think. I bought a map of a Pokemon thing.
Ah, cool, man. Okay.
It's I live in the New York area, and the Univo area is based on New York City, White Plains, Trenton. And so, I used to live in Yorktown Heights, like a few miles outside of White Plains, about 25 miles outside of White Plains. So I know that area so well that I did buy that app because it's amazing. It's New York City in Pokemon. It's awesome.
I love maps. We always make, I wish I had one here. I'd show you, but all our books come with maps, and it's what they call a Chrome enhanced map. It's a little shiny.
It's a little too funny. It hits a little too close to home. But you have some other stuff too. I think you have obviously you mentioned the Terrain artifact or the Tehran.
Oh, Terran artifact. Yeah, sure. That's that one there.
which is super cool in that regard. And that's something that's very interesting. And that has a lot of stuff in it too.
And there's multiple choices too. You can get cover A. That's awesome.
Too much. It's too much.
Yeah.
It's too many things to choose from. And I don't even think that's that bad, all things considering.
Yeah, I don't do anything like shirts or hats yet, although I might see what the future holds. I try to stick with printed material. You know, my main thing, Andrew, I am books, music, and maps. That's what stuff of mine goes together. The other stuff that you see along the way, the videos and the carvings, that's just the extras along the way, you know.
And then we did speak about the retail package, and obviously, you know, your retail package is less than 100, which isn't bad. I mean, its cost basis is about $5 a book, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. I get for, you mean how much is my print runs?
No. The cost basis for a customer. If you have 20 books in a retail package and it's $100, it's $5 a book as your cost basis.
Right.
Not your print run. You don't have to tell me that you don't.
I was just gonna say, because of course they're all different. In my case, you're pretty close actually. But you know, the element that we got to learn how to tweak, and like I say, I'm always learning this. Right, this is what we're going to learn on this one, is that we have one, you know, $10 book, and that's like your regular. It's like a basic comic book. But the other ones, what's the correct amount of extra stuff to have? Is it a shiny logo? Is it a shiny logo in person? Is it a printable hollow foil? So we got, or is it black and white with a wild green? So, you know, we got some things, we're going to put them out there like feelers to see what is successful, you know.
You're going through what I'm going through in my eBay business right now, and I'm beginning to test it. So what I sold today, you know, this is my third one of that segment of the same, you know, company that I bought from. And this stuff sold really well. I sold the 3 main items out of the box, of the mystery box it came in, and it paid for the whole thing and gave me a profit on $3. And the other stuff that I have is going to also do the same. It might just take a little longer, preferably maybe in the next week and a half, due to a very important movie that might have come out today. Might be playing a role in that. Only the greatest movie of our generation came out today, but that's not the point. Let's go, guys. If you haven't figured it out by now, everybody, I don't know what to tell you. I gave so many clues. But I'm testing merch to see what works and what doesn't. And whatever merch sells and sells quick and at high value is the merch I'm going to bring in. And I have no problem testing other merch. I mean, I might pick up your retail package too, because I might want to test it. And I'll take $100 risk. Without a doubt, I'm thinking about it, because guess what? If all of a sudden I'm making $300 on your retail package, I'll buy more of it if it sells. And
yeah, and I have them, like I say, I definitely need to experiment there. So I got all mine. I'm actually like, it's a good deal price wise. For example, you know, it's like a buy 10, get 10. You could even get 10 of the super high ones. Or what you probably want to mix and match. I guess everybody can pick what they want to do. But if it was just by dollar value, you could pick the highest dollar value ones, because they're all, the door's wide open, so to speak.
Yeah, no, I am still thinking about it, but the idea is that when I look at a retail package, and maybe this could help a lot of people in comics, is that I sell exclusively on eBay. So eBay takes 13% out, and then I have to set a third aside for taxes. Now, I'm setting a third aside of taxes on not what I bring in, but on what minus my profit and what minus eBay. So if I sell $300 and eBay takes out $50, and then it costs me $100, it's taxed on $150. It's not taxed on the $300. There's a difference between that, because I get my capital back, and that's not taxable. But the idea is that what most people, I think, sometimes in comics don't realize is that you have to price it so that there's meat on the bone for me to eat, and it becomes worth my effort. Because if you're selling me an MSRP of $20 and you're giving me the book for 15, there's no meat on the bone. If you think your book's worth $20 and you're selling it to me for 10, there's meat on the bone. Then there might only be $4 of profit, but there's still meat on the bone.
Right. So,
And that's what I think a lot of creators don't understand, is finding that sweet spot. And so for me, that's kind of where I'm at. And that's what I look for retail packages. And I'm unique because I sell exclusively on eBay, but even a comic shop has to know how much money they bring in per square foot. And that's going to determine their retail level. But that's just me. But who knows? Maybe somebody else has a different view on all of this. But that's why I like your retail package a lot, because it leaves room for me to eat.
yeah,
But I digress. Maybe that's a little too much information for everybody. I don't know.
Well, the retail information is useful to know, and we're all trying to figure it out. So I hear you, brother. I hear you.
And then you got retroactive lobby cards, and then you got the CGC stuff, which is super interesting.
Right. Yeah, I got a little bit of a relationship with CGC. It's something I sell them at cons too, and they're generally about what is it on there? I don't have it in front of me. It's like $100 or something, probably.
Oh, I don't have it across me either. I just put it. I forgot to put the price in, but it's not that bad. It's not that bad, all things considering.
And I also the people who sign up, there's no upcharge for, like, if you buy one of the more expensive books. It's just like the flat grading rate. It's the same price for any book.
And so I like that. Obviously, people love CGC stuff. People want their CGC stuff. And in indie, it's tricky right now. It's very tricky. There's a lot of stuff potentially being in the works. I am somewhat privileged to having an idea what's coming, but there's a lot of interesting things going on with that. And I think a lot of people in indie comics are figuring out how to get their books CGC'd, because let's be realistic, everything is licensable right now. And if you have a CGC of a first issue, who's to say in 5 years that Netflix might call you up? I mean, they're looking for stuff, and they're going to the indie comic world, and there's a lot of speculation. And also, people want cool stuff, and they want a book protected, and they find value in this. And, why wouldn't you want to give it to your customers if they want something?
Yeah, and it's been a good seller for us too. We sold 2 already.
So there you go, and it also is fun. I mean, it's cool stuff, and why not, right?
I'm a CGC collector. I admit it, and I like. I guess I should give a full disclosure. I used to work for the company some years ago, CBCS, which is the alternate grading company.
I'm a big CGC fan. I got one of these. It's not a comic.
Oh, nice. All right, congratulations.
I like them. They're great, and I have a bunch of CGC books. They're fantastic, and I have a bunch of CBCS books. I have a rare CBCS book. I have a Canto 9.8, and for those who don't know why that's a valuable book, 2/3 of the print run on that book were Jack, the first print runs.
Oh, okay.
To get a 9.8, it's like a $700-900 book, which is ludicrous in a 9.8 signed. So I also have a Saga 9.6 with them.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that's a fun book too.
Yeah, signed. I love Saga, man.
Mine is signed by BK Vaughn and Fiona Staples.
Whoa, nice.
It's very cool. It's a verified signature, but it's still authenticated. Great concept.
That's a red one, right?
It is a red one, but now it's yellow. So, but I'm not resending it in because I don't want them to mess with my grade.
Oh, gotcha.
I'll happily keep my 9.6 because it's a good grade. But I digress. And luckily you all don't know where I live, because I know all you want those 2 books, and you want the rest of my collection too. I have books that Boom doesn't have in their collection. I have a very rare WWE book signed by the 4 Horsewomen and the Bella Twins, graded in a 9.8. And I got that book way below value. And no, it was not the 5-finger discount. I promise. I just happened to find a buyer who was like, it wasn't moving, and I made an offer. I thought he was going to reject it, and he accepted it. And I'm like, here's my credit card, and just process it. No problem. But anyway, I digress. This is not about me. You have the Erwin, I can't say his last name.
Arosa.
I'm trying here. Collector set as well. I think you got the Psychic Vision. You got the Fate of replicant, and
basically what that means, the ending there is basically what that means is if you'd like to be drawn into our story, we do offer that tier, and it is a best in class experience. What I mean by that, it will look exactly like you, not a little like you, like in most comics, or slightly like you. It'll look like you, and you will have lines in the story that matter.
that's nice. That's nice, and I'm assuming that if you get into a publisher, that doesn't get taken out and all that stuff.
You know, that's a great question. What we do in our case is there's 2 sets of pages. And the reason for that is, number one, because of what you just mentioned. And also in case of backer, you know, sometimes they can drop their pledge or something like that. And it's happened to us as creators before. Somebody pays to be drawn in, you go through and you get them all drawn in, and then they cancel their credit card, right? So, but you might want to keep those old pages in the back pocket just in case.
But if somebody doesn't cancel their pledge and they want to be in there and they're cool with it, I mean,
yeah, most people would want to be.
That's the thing. I would want to be, and,
Yeah.
and it's an idea. I'm a big Zenescope fan, and
They do that.
They do that for a certain amount of points with their rewards. And what they do is that usually they kill off you in it, and most people find it to be an honor because it's funny.
We do it in all our books. We offer the drawn in tier. It's called the Codex. And I actually do have one in front of me that I could show. It's actually in this book. But to give you an idea of the likeness, like it really looks like you.
Oh, that's cool.
Right? Like that's a buddy of mine that looks just like him. And actually, when I opened this, the map fell out. There's what the map looks like.
Oh, that's cool too.
Yeah. That's what we call a chrome enhanced tactical map. See, it's got the shiny Water Wars logo on the top.
I like how it looks like a postcard.
Yeah, it's on fixed stock paper. That's one of the things we do. And the next thing you're going to see, this is for the current book, Call of the Cryptid. One of the stretch goals, it's 2288 is the goal. And it's a map of the 9 realms. Like basically each monster comes from his own world. And it looks like it's going to look like a star map. And it's going to have chrome enhancements. I promise it'll be really cool.
You do a lot of cool stuff. And then I mean, now you're making me want to go finish my script.
Hey, I'll help you, man. I'll help you.
I mean, yeah, I could probably use the help, but I want to just bang it out. A bunch of people have been oddly supportive. I've only dealt with one person who's been negative, but a bunch of people have been supportive. Like Tom Hutchinson's been supportive.
Oh yeah, sure.
Guest before has been supportive. Tom basically said if I don't do it, he's going to steal from me. So that's his version of support.
Yeah, man. My advice to people is always, hey, just start making it. Like if you look at this, is basically me 3-4 years later, after saying, hey, I want to make my own comics, and now there's so many back issues we almost can't even list them in the Kickstarter.
It's great. Tom basically said you have a really good idea. If you don't do this, I'm going to do it. So you have 2 years, and I'm like, great. If Tom Hutchinson thinks it's a good idea and he wants to steal it, I can't let that happen. So, but he's been very supportive. A bunch of other people have been also very supportive. Oddly enough, a lot more than I thought on my idea. And my idea isn't crazy, but people are like, dude, this is a fun idea, and then it's great. And so, I'm going to be writing it on the weekend. I write on the weekends, and I like it. And I take the Paul Levitz approach on how to write comics.
Okay. What's Paul's approach?
He was an executive in DC. So a lot of the time during the week, he obviously was a father of 3 kids, obviously his wife. And so he would be an executive, and then he would write on the weekends because that's when he had time. And it makes sense because if you have a day job and I do this during the week, I run my eBay business. The only time I have is to write on the weekends. So if I can get maybe 6 pages done and maybe it takes me a month to write a comic, that's okay because I'm doing a bunch of other stuff too. So it's a very, very interesting thing. And he was explaining it on a podcast I did with him a while ago. So he was a professor of mine, oddly enough.
Nice.
I got to see him every Tuesday for 15 weeks. It was amazing. Best senior year ever in college. But I digress. Obviously, you got a lot of stuff. You got a lot of rewards. You got a lot of cool stuff. I'm definitely going to think about getting that retail package. I'm on the fence on it, but sure. It's not a bad play for me. It's not.
We could make it work for to have the best mix too. Like I communicate with everybody personally. Some people want to mix because don't forget, there's also the other books in my other series if you wanted some kind of. I'll
I
make it
don't.
work
Even,
in.
I haven't even thought about it. I mean, I just thought about getting a retail package in the middle of this interview. I haven't even gotten that far into what I would want, what I would need, what would work best for me. But I also don't have to decide this second. So no pressure. It's not like
you got time. You got
decide
time
on the air, guys. This is that's the follow up. Is we'll raise the stakes up. But I digress once again. And I do want to back out of this, but I am curious where you feel Kickstarter is going, because you obviously have done a bunch. You've done, I think, 6 of them.
Yeah,
On the
6.
back, I think 96 of them. You are around comics. I think you love comics. You're a comic collector. And Kickstarter is complicated right now, I feel, where people who have names in comics are struggling. People who also have names are not struggling. I mean, Pat Shand is a good example where he has and he's killing it. And he's doing great. But then you have other people who have killed it in the past who are struggling. And you have people who struggled in the past and they're doing okay. And they're not like doing, they're not making $1 million, but they've doubled what they've done on their last campaign. And it's a very odd space right now. At least that's how I see it, as somebody who interviews a lot of people. And that's just my view on it. So I'm curious how you view everything that's going on, because it's just weird.
I know there's been a lot of changes, right? And I can tell you that I did look into using some other crowdfunding sources, and I still might. There's many great platforms out there. The only reason why I did not change for this campaign is because now I have a certain amount of backers that follow me, and I was nervous that if I would jump platforms, maybe they might not all follow me. Specifically, what I was doing was looking at Indiegogo, and I still might go over there, because what they say is, you run your launch on Kickstarter and you get the books all printed, and then you run an on-demand on Indiegogo. But from what I've seen of the Indiegogo on-demand, it didn't impress me too much. I guess it's okay. I mean, never say never, right? But as you know, it's a lot of work to run these campaigns, and it's almost, by the time I get done running the campaign, let's say this one, for example, I'm not going to want to sit down for the Indiegogo creation. It's going to be time to write issue number 2. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, I did my podcast and I think it was exhausting, and I was not going to jump over to Indiegogo. I was done after 1. And then, to be quite honest, I would probably need a month or 2 just to recover. And I don't know.
Right.
It's exhausting. I mean, 30 days is a long time to be pushing something out, anything out, for 30 days. I mean, it's crazy by yourself, or even with a few people. It's difficult.
Yeah, I agree, man. And it's something that, you only have so much spirit. And, of course, you're excited. You want to bring this project to the world and you want to show it to everybody and everything like that. But it is a lot of work to keep track of the social media posts and the writing and the videos. And, it's I almost need a helper to help me remember everything.
I feel you. I feel you. In which that, I mean, I did my thing, and I was in between jobs studying for a major test that eventually got my job, and I had a lot more free time. And again, I don't know how I would do it right now in a 40-hour work week, and I'm sure I'm going to find it out eventually. But right now, I don't want to think about that, because I'm at least a year out, which is fine. And I'm more than happy to postpone that problem temporarily. But I digress again. We've been speaking for almost an hour and a half.
That was a good conversation. Yeah.
A lot of stuff is covered.
We got a lot in common, man. It turns out we got a lot in common.
I know. Just we didn't get to speak about Raymond Carver, though. That's the only problem.
Oh yeah, my all-time favorite.
Just fascinating individual. John Fontaine is good too. Bukowski's great.
Oh yeah.
I'm a big Bukowski guy. I love Bukowski. I love the way he writes. And
I got to tell you, real quick before we go, I started as a short story writer, so that's how I'm tied in with these big short story writer names, because I've followed them and even given some seminars about them. But I never got anywhere until I started making what they call now graphic novels, and that was almost right away. I did better with them than any of the short stories. And it seems like it's still going up, man. Now it's Call of the Cryptid, live over on Kickstarter.
And so obviously we were going to segue right into what you already started segueing into, which is I do want to give you a chance to self-promote. So
Sure.
where can people find you, back you on social media, hit you up
The
on
best
social
way
media?
to follow me right now, I'm on YouTube, of course. They have what they call a handle on YouTube. I'm at Timothy Fling, or I'm Timothy B. Fling on Facebook. If you want to follow me there, that's pretty easy. I'm on Twitter, but I don't really use the Twitter as much as, I can't quite get any traction there, so I don't use it. But I'm on TikTok, which is at Earth Dog Studios. Probably the easiest way to find me is I'm almost always on Kickstarter anymore. I'm there right now with my new project. It is a cryptid-based visual sci-fi adventure titled Call of the Cryptid, in which a teenage girl, after an alien encounter, gains the ability to communicate with a race of legendary monsters. If you like aliens, UFOs, the Men in Black, Bigfoot, and heavy metal, this is the book for you.
That's a fantastic pitch, and I'm in at least for something on this.
I
I
appreciate
don't know
you,
what
man.
yet. I don't know what yet. But also I will just say this in case anybody is wondering: you do have 36 days to finance it or come up with the money.
Yeah.
And that's the nice thing about Kickstarter is that Kickstarter is a deferment of payment. And so anytime you could defer payment and figure out, and it could fit within your paycheck, you are going to be relatively covered for a while. So if you like something, you can back it now and then figure out how to pay for it later, which is nice. And you don't get billed until it is fully done, which is also nice. But I digress about that. I'm going to quickly promote myself. Obviously, I am on social media, Pop Anime Comics on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, also YouTube. Feel free to subscribe on YouTube. It is free. And I have almost 500 interviews on YouTube.
Nice.
So there's
Congrats.
something for everybody. There's something for everybody. If you're into anime, you're into comics, mainstream comics, indie comics, you just like cosplayers, bunch of other people, writers, wrestlers. There's an interview for everybody, and I cannot guarantee you will get smarter watching me. I can guarantee you will be entertained. I am willing to put real money on that there's an interview that you will be entertained on my YouTube channel. So if you're looking for a good time, my YouTube channel is perfect for you. 500 interviews, so many different sectors. You are more than welcome to hit it up. And then also, I have a bunch of other things going on. I have a t-shirt making fun of Gundam, Taco Bell, and Lando Bell, and the most interesting man in the world. Again, Redbubble. It's pretty much made demand. I have Buy Me a Coffee. I have my ad rates up there as well. And so if you're looking for anything from me, I'm pretty accessible. You could hit me up. I'm always willing to respond if you say hi and you're nice to me. I'll be nice back. And that's everything I got. But on that note, I'm going to give you the final word.
Okay. I appreciate you giving me a couple of minutes, Andrew. And the thing is, I have a great time on your show. I think you got great questions, and I'm grateful for the reviewers and the podcasters doing what they do. So, man, just thanks for having me on. I'd love to come back anytime. And if you ever want to swing by on a Friday night, man, we'll chat on the air about all our favorite comics.
I'm probably going to take you up on that eventually. I don't know when, but I will eventually stop by if I got nothing going on, and I don't even know what's going on my Friday night anymore anyhow. So who knows? You guys might see me a lot sooner. But anyhow, I don't think I could have said that any better myself. I appreciate the compliment. And that is a wrap, everybody.